I'm Joe Capitafaro, the Town Council for Farmington. On July 14, 2020, the Racial Inequality Task Force was created as a result of social events that highlighted the gross inequalities present in every community across the country. The Town of Farmington has responsibility to its community members to act towards solving the problems that weigh heavily on people's hearts and minds. The task force members were appointed by the Town Council. Now let me introduce the rest of the task force to you. Christopher Cloud, Task Force Chair. Yamina Penn, Naika Thompson, Jeremy McLaurin, Sarah Smith, Jessica Harrison, Tanner Muzinski, Isaac Vargas, Edward Gennaros, Town Council Liaison, Bill Becker, Board of Education Liaison, Kay Higgins, Human Relations Liaison. And our non-voting members include Nancy Parent, Staff Liaison, Sergeant Corey Vincent, Police Liaison, and Anna Savastano, Clerk.
Good evening. This is Nancy Parent. The charge of our task force includes to examine and create a plan to develop strategies and community partnerships to address racial inequality, to educate residents, and to increase awareness about Black lives by identifying areas of improvement in the community and to recommend an action plan to eliminate factors that lead to inequality. As part of that plan, the following 6 objectives were adopted. The first objective, to hold meetings with residents to identify issues in the community that have led to unequal treatment based on race and to engage residents through holding community forums, dialogue groups, and training workshops on implicit bias to develop a campaign to increase public awareness of these issues. The second objective, to analyze the current town services in collaboration with the town manager to increase transparency, to address racial inequality, and to develop initiatives and measurable goals. The third objective, to collaborate with and support the Farmington Valley Health District in their mission to incorporate and adopt principles of social justice into everyday public health practice. The fourth objective, to support the Board of Education in their efforts to ensure anti-racism, social justice, and equity within the pre-K through 12 school system in collaboration with the Superintendent of Schools. Objective 5, to analyze current procedures and policies of the Police Department in collaboration with the Chief of Police, including use of force, to increase transparency, to address racial inequality, and to develop initiatives and measurable goals in collaboration with the Chief of Police. The final objective, to encourage a diverse workforce by providing education and training to local businesses in the areas of racial inequalities, and to research possible incentives to increase the number of Black-owned businesses in collaboration with the Economic Development Director. On August 19th, the task force held its first meeting. At this time, our task force members will present the recommendations of our action plan.
Hi, I'm Sarah Smith, and I will introduce our first objective, community conversations. Our goal is to identify issues in the Farmington community that have led to unequal treatment based on race. In order to do this, we will host and support community forums, dialogue groups for open discussion, and training workshops on implicit bias. Through these informative conversations, we will develop a campaign that will increase public awareness of the issues of inequity in our community. The task force has developed the following action steps that will optimize these important conversations. We will support and promote current diversity programs like the Color of Justice through the Town Social Services Department. We will market the task force and its work through mailings and web presence, including social media. We also intend to start a social media etiquette campaign to raise awareness and educate the community about responsibility for your online voice. We will form a subcommittee that will host focus groups to promote sharing of resources and experiences. Through another subcommittee, we will plan and host a community march or gathering to celebrate diversity. And we will make a recommendation to the town as well as support the efforts as needed to campaign for more minority representation on boards and commissions. Finally, we recommend that the town council reprioritize funding as needed to assist in these endeavors.
I'm Chris Cloud, and I'm the chair of the Racial Equity Task Force. Our second objective focuses on our town services. The task force plans to analyze the current town services in collaboration with the town manager, with the goal of increasing transparency, addressing any racial inequalities, and developing initiatives and measurable goals. First, we recommend that the town's current strategic plan be amended with a goal that establishes zero tolerance for racism in Farmington. We also recommend that the town manager add appropriate action steps to each department head's goals to support the zero tolerance objective. The task force will form a subcommittee to research and recommend resources for implicit bias training for all town employees. We recommend that this training be mandatory for full-time as well as part-time staff. We will also seek resources that will help the town in its efforts to diversify recruitment for open town positions. We recommend that the town recognize Juneteenth as a national holiday. We recommend that the town manager discuss the changing of Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day during union contract negotiations. Finally, we recommend that the town hire an equity and inclusion consultant with a specialty in municipalities. The task force asks the town council to consider funds as needed to support these action steps towards enhancing our town's services.
I'm Jess Harrison, and I'll be discussing how the task force plans to support healthcare equality in Farmington. The topic of racial disparities in healthcare is a heavily researched one, with many theories, recommendations, or change. Some of the known factors that present health and well-being hurdles for minorities include inadequate health insurance, difficulties in accessing nutritious food, and a generational mistrust and fear of being poorly treated. Even now, statistics have shown that persons of color, while only 1.5 times likely as to catch COVID, are nearly 3 times as likely to die from COVID-19 compared to white people. This task force goal is to collaborate with and the support of the Farmington Valley Health District in their mission to incorporate important social justice principles into everyday public health practice. We will review and help finalize the Health District's declaration of racism as a public health crisis. We will also recommend that the town council make a similar declaration. And finally, we will support the advisory board of the Public Health District in all matters concerning racial equality.
I'm Tanner Muzinski, a recent alumnus of Farmington High School, and I'll be presenting how this task force will promote diversity in Farmington's public education experience. Our objective is to support the Board of Education in collaboration with the superintendent in ensuring anti-racism, social justice, and equity are present throughout the pre-K through high school systems. This slide details the recommendations we are requesting the town council to make to the Board of Education. Our first is to include a detailed equity plan in the annual report that is submitted to the town council. This is the plan that would also be in the school development plan report and the results and outcomes report. We'd like the Board of Education's equity plan to include recruitment strategies for a diverse workplace, and it should be published to the town's strategic plan. Next, we'd like the town council to request a new equity and inclusion committee be formed specifically for the Board of Ed issues. Our suggestion is that the committee be comprised of 2 members from the Racial Equality Task Force, 2 members from the Board of Education, 1 town council member, and other community members and staff. We have recommended here different topics that the Equity and Inclusion Committee would work on as a starting point. Many of these focus on diversity training and recruitment, policies for zero tolerance of racism, communication, and curriculum review and development to ensure a learning environment that represents all of our students. The task force final recommendation in this action plan is that the Equity and Inclusion Coordinator, as well as the Assistant Superintendent of Schools, meet as needed with the Racial Equality Task Force to act as a liaison between us and the Board of Education.
I'm Yamina Penn, and I will detail the task force's objective for community policing. In collaboration with the Chief of Police, the task force will analyze current procedures and policies of the police department, including use of force, increase overall transparency regarding racial inequities, and develop measurable goals and initiatives. The task force has several action steps and recommendations towards improving our community policing efforts. Item 1. First, the task force will form a small subcommittee or working group to review the language and impact of the recent Police Accountability Bill and how it will pertain to policing in our community. Item 2. As part of the overall town services goal to recruit a more diverse staff, we will also look for ways to help the police department increase minority representation. Item 3. Based on the statistics for youth arrests at West Farms Mall, the task force recommends that a goal be added to the strategic plan to implement implicit bias training for all mall business owners and security officers. Item 4. We also plan to form a subcommittee or working group to review and make recommendations regarding the current diversity training programs in place at the police department. Item 5. The task force will support in any way the collaboration between the police department and social services, especially as it pertains to the Police Accountability Bill. Item 6. And finally, we plan to create a subcommittee or small group to work with the Community Policing Unit to plan educational and positive interactions between Black youth, law enforcement, and community. To support all of these endeavors, we ask that the Town Council reprioritize funding as needed.
I'm Jeremy McLaurin, and I'll present our final objective of this action plan, diverse business development. The task force objective in this area is to encourage a diverse workforce by providing education and training in the areas of racial inequality. The task force, in collaboration with the Economic Development Director, also intend to research incentives that will increase the number of Black-owned businesses in Farmington and Unionville. The first step toward diversifying the Farmington business community is to create focus groups of Black business owners in the area to better understand their experiences with owning and operating business here. The task force will research resources such as business advisory services, low-interest loans, technical assistance, and grants, to name a few, to provide to current Black business owners. In collaboration with the Economic Development Director, we will identify minority-focused banks and lenders to help Black and brown entrepreneurs, and also search for economic incentives that can be resources for current and new business owners. We recommend that the Economic Development Commission host meetings to discuss implicit bias in business interactions with minority customers as well as employees and coworkers. The task force will initiate a campaign among the business community to educate and encourage best practices for minority recruiting and diversity. Finally, the task force recommends that the Town Council commit any funding needed to accomplish these action steps toward a more diverse Farmington community.
Hello, this is Anna Savastano, the clerk of the task force. While we know our next step will be to create an implementation schedule, we're really excited to report that we've already started on some of the action steps. Some of the things we've done so far include forming a subcommittee to organize a monthly focus group or community discussion. The first event is tentatively scheduled for February 17th, 2021, and our first topic will be Black in Suburbia. We've written letters to political parties to encourage and recommend a campaign to increase a more diverse representation on our town's boards and commissions. We've started collaboration with surrounding towns to discuss sharing of resources for programming, as well as the potential for a shared consultant. We've started the process of planning an implicit bias training for businesses, starting with the West Farms Mall. We're developing language for the strategic plan, and we're developing language and resources to be used for a future website, as well as educational opportunities. We've started developing a list of potential programs with police and Farmington youth. In recent programming by the police, they've actually chosen a more diverse book selection to read, thanks to influence from this task force. And of course, one of the most important accomplishments is, as a community, we're laying the foundation for listening, learning, and change.
Hi, I am Edward Gianaros, one of the Town Council liaisons for the task force. I hope our presentation has given you a clear picture of the hard work and dedication from each of our task force members. Tonight, as a council, we will look to approve our action steps. This is only our first step as a task force. We still have a lot of work ahead of us, and this includes to develop an implementation schedule, prioritize our action plan goals, form subcommittees, investigate a recommendation to create a police advisory committee, meet with state legislators, and further develop a partnership with our neighboring towns. Thank you for your time.